So welcome you all to NPTEL Foundations of Cryptography tutorial session for week 12. Let me share my screen. Is my screen visible?
Yes, ma'am.
Yeah, it is visible.
Okay. So let us start with the last week assignment questions. So first question was this: select the incorrect options. A digital signature scheme consists of 4 algorithms. The verification key of a digital signature scheme is publicly available, but the signing key is secret. The verification key of a digital signature scheme is held secret, but the signing key is made public. And the fourth statement says a randomized signing algorithm will result in success during verification process. You have to choose the incorrect options. So anyone will like to answer and explain maybe?
Ma'am,
Yes.
first and third are incorrect.
First and third are incorrect, right? So yes, a digital signature scheme typically consists of 3 algorithms, right? There is the key generation step where you generate publicly available verification key and the secret signing key, right? So in digital signature algorithm, the verification key is public because if you are signing some document or message using your secret signing key, then it should be publicly verifiable, right? So anyone should have access to your verification key, but the signing key is only known to you, so that is the secret. And digital signature scheme has these 3 steps. First is key gen, where you generate the public and private key, and then there is this signing algorithm where you take the message M and use the signing key to sign the message and generate the signature. And then the last algorithm is the verification algorithm, where given a signature and given a message and corresponding signature, you have to verify whether the signature is indeed a valid signature on the communicated message M using the verification key, right? So first statement is wrong, and second statement says verification key of a digital signature scheme is publicly available, but the signing key is secret. This is true, already mentioned. And third statement is exactly opposing the second statement, so of course third statement is wrong. And fourth statement says that a randomized signing algorithm will result in success during verification process. So signing algorithm can be randomized, but in order to avoid ambiguity, the verification algorithm should always be deterministic, because given a message M and a corresponding signature sigma, it cannot be the case that sometime the verification algorithm for the same message M and signature sigma returns the verification algorithm to be true, and in another cases you run the verification algorithm with the same message signature pair and get the answer as no. So that should not be the case. That's why verification algorithm should be always deterministic, but signing algorithm of course can be randomized, right? Okay, so proceeding to the next question. The security of which of the following cryptographic constructions is not based on the hardness of the discrete logarithm problem? Given options are Schnorr signature scheme, Pedersen's commitment scheme, Elgamal encryption scheme, and all of the above. So I think this question was probably discussed in last week also. So anyone would answer? Right. So Elgamal is the one where discrete log needs not be necessarily hard. So in case of Elgamal encryption scheme, we assume that DDH assumption holds true. So if so that means that if DDH is a easier problem to solve, right, than discrete logarithm. So if you are assuming that DDH problem is hard to solve, that is a stronger assumption, and we need that to hold to get a secure Elgamal encryption scheme. And for Schnorr signature and Pedersen's commitment, we need actually the discrete logarithm problem to be hard. And what happens in Schnorr signature scheme, just to recall, so it is the so we saw Schnorr identification scheme in the last week, and in this week's lecture it was described that using Fiat semi transformation how you can get to convert the Schnorr identification scheme to Schnorr signature scheme. So just to recap, that in general for any identification scheme there is a prover and there is a verifier, and prover tries to prove its identity to the verifier, right? So what do we mean by identity? So there must be some secret key SK which is owned by the prover, and its corresponding verification key or public key is known to verifier, and verifier wants to confirm whether P is the entity who has the corresponding secret key SK for PK, right? And that identity needs to be confirmed, and for that usually what happens, so there is two prover algorithm which gets executed on the prover side. For the first algorithm, let's say P1, we denote it with P1, the first prover algorithm. It takes the secret key as input and outputs some commitment I along with sometimes some state information, and it communicates to the verifier the commitment I first, and next verifier has to pick up some challenge uniformly randomly from a challenge space, and it sends that challenge to the prover, and now prover runs the another prover algorithm, let's denote it as P2, and this takes C as the input, right? And it generates also I like C and I, the already committed value, and it generates some response, right? Let's say S, and the verifier should actually use the public key PK and challenge C and S to verify whether this actually gives back the commitment I, and if this holds true, this equality holds true, then it says that its verification is passed, and it believes that prover is the correct identity who holds the secret information SK. Now in terms of Schnorr identification scheme, this I is nothing but a group element where K is chosen uniform. So let me write it separately. So in Schnorr identification scheme, what happens, there is this prover and verifier, and prover of course has, so there is this group information, let's say the set G, its generator small g, and its size Q, the size of the group, are publicly available information, and there is some secret X, right, which is an element of ZQ, and P has this access to this secret information X, and V holds the corresponding public information, which is nothing but, let's say, y equal to g to the power x. So V knows y. Now what happens, to prove that P indeed has the access to the secret information x, P first chooses, say, some random value k, right, chosen uniformly randomly from the space ZQ, and it sends to V the value g to the power k. Now due to discrete logarithm assumption from g to the power k, it is hard for V to guess the value k. Now next V chooses a challenge which is again uniform random element from ZQ, and sends the challenge R to P, and P now computes the value xr plus k, right, denote it with S, and sends it to the verifier. Now verifier has to verify basically that g to the power s, right, into, say, y to the power minus r, this should give you back I. Why? Because g to the power s is nothing but g to the power xr plus k, because s is equal to xr plus k, and y to the power minus r, y is nothing but g to the power x. So x is not known to verifier v, but y is available. So if it is raising y to the power minus r, so this is nothing but g to the power minus xr. So what is left is g to the power k, that is I only. So this will hold true only if the prover p has access to the value x, right? Then only this equation holds, and if this equation holds, then verifier is convinced that x is known to p. Now this is the identification scheme where there is this 3-round protocol going on, right? Commitment, challenge and response. And in order to turn it to a signature scheme where it will be non-interactive, so only one round will be there from the prover side to verifier side. So then basically prover has to generate honestly a random challenge R on its own. So it will not take this challenge input from the verifier, rather it will generate the challenge on its own such that it is still a uniform random element from the desired space. And how is it done? Basically in this case again the commitment I is again computed in same manner. So this is still g to the power k, but then there is a hash function which is modeled as random oracle. It takes some message m which it wants to sign, right? So m is the message for which the signature needs to be generated. So this m, message m and the commitment I both are taken as input by the prover, and because h is a random oracle, h is modeled as random oracle, so its output is basically believed to be uniformly random over the space zq. So in this manner, if R is generated, then we believe that R is a uniform random element. Of course H needs to map any random string to the space zq, right? Now in this manner, if R is generated and then again S is generated in the same manner, that is Rx plus k, right? And then it communicates R and S to the verifier v. Now I is not communicated to the verifier v, but it can still actually verify by raising, let's say, if it raises g to the power s, right? And it also gets the message. So this is the signature and message m is also there, right? And whatever is the value computed in this manner, that is g to the power k. So that's how I is computed on the verifier side, and now it validates whether h of m comma I indeed returns R or not. So R is accessible to verifier. So if this equality holds finally, then it knows that R comma S is a valid signature for A. So this is only single round interaction from prover side to verifier side, but essentially the internal assumption is that this identification scheme is secure. If this identification scheme is secure, then the signature scheme built upon that identification scheme is also secure. So this is what SNOT signature scheme does. So clearly for this equation to hold, in case a prover is dishonest, so we want to prove that if prover is dishonest, it does not have access to correct secret value x, then it should never be able to produce a forgery on this message, right? So in order to hold that true, we need the discrete logarithm to hold true, right? Because we can show that if it is able to generate this identification scheme, this commitment I in some other manner of form some s dash and y to the power r dash, then knowledge of two such pair s and r and s dash and r dash for the same value g and y, right? For that knowledge to hold true, you essentially have to have the knowledge of secret x. That is ensured by the discrete logarithm assumption. So by that, SNOT signature scheme is said to be based on discrete logarithm hardness. And in similar manner, Peterson's commitment scheme also has this similar kind of form, where we say that g to the power a h to the power b, if it is a commitment, then this should have the sufficient binding property and hiding property. And binding property to hold to, basically it requires the discrete logarithm hardness to hold, right? So that is why first and second options are actually based on hardness of discrete logarithm, not the third one. So correct, and it is asking that which is not based on hardness of Elgamal, hardness of discrete log. So third option is the correct option. Proceeding to the next question. Is there Shravani Boidu, do you have any question? You have raised hand.
Yes, ma'am.
Yes.
Ma'am, please help me with some suggestion question to prepare for NPTEL exam.
Yes, ma'am. We all do that.
So,
What is the hardness level of the exam? Is it too much hard or medium? I mean, I want to know that.
hardness is completely depending upon the individual perspective, I think. But I can say that if you were going through all the lectures, right, if you were understanding those concepts, you will certainly have a good marks in the exam also. So the pattern of questions will be equivalent to the weekly assignments that are posted on NPTEL website, right? And if you have good understanding of all the
So
concepts,
if we have gone through the assignments, then it is solvable.
right, then you are understanding the concepts, right? Then it should not be very difficult to clear the exam actually, right? If you are understanding all the basic concepts starting from, right, it's a huge syllabus starting from week 1 to week 12, right, starting with symmetric key world, right, perfect secrecy, then you enter into computational secrecy world, you have symmetric key encryptions concept, you have PRF, PRG, you have this hash functions, right, MAC, and all these things. And then you enter the public key world, where you are dealing with RSA crypto system, you are dealing with Diffie-Hellman key exchange. All these basic concepts, if those are like clear to you, then it will not be very hard to clear the exam.
Actually, the problem is, ma'am, that
Yes.
we are not that much prepared. We are average, and it's some problem for others also. So it will be helpful if you can suggest us with some kind
Yes,
of.
ma'am. Yes, ma'am.
I understand, but the point is that I really do not have access to any material or something, or let's say question pattern or something. We are just like TAs who also have access to the lectures materials like you, and like some 2 years questions that are posted on NPTEL website as weekly assignment, but we do not have access to last year actual NPTEL exam questions. Okay, but okay, let me tell you that on Thursday there will be another extra session of 1 hour. Okay, so in that I will try to like cover the whole syllabus in 1 hour, like a brief overview just to recap, because this is week 12 when we started. So 12 weeks is a long time. So we started with something, and then gradually we have come to the public key and advanced primitives, right? So maybe we have like kind of forgotten the beginning stuffs. So to get a overall view of the whole syllabus, so there will be another extra session on Thursday. So there I can just get try to give you a overview, but I don't know, I will try to find from someone. If I don't think it is even accessible, because the exams are online, right? So if the students who have given exam in previous years, so they also don't have physical access to all those questions. They submitted the answers, and it's not accessible, I don't think so. So anyway I cannot manage to get last year questions actually. But I will try to give an overview, and if you have any particular doubt you can ask in the next session also. I'll be happy to answer. Try to have an overview on your own also of all the basics topics that were covered in 12 weeks, right? And then on Thursday we can just discuss if you have some doubts and all. Okay. Okay. Thank you. So coming back to assignment questions, let H, which is from mapping from Zn star space to Zn star, be a hash function modeled as a random oracle. Consider the following RSA based signature scheme. So signature scheme has the three algorithms: keygen, sign and verify. So keygen is outputting the signing key sk and the public value n, and verification key vk and n as per the RSA key generation algorithm. Signing algorithm is taking as input the secret key sk and the or signing key sk and message m and outputting sigma. So the signature is generated in this following manner: you hash the message m first and then raise it to the power of sk mod n, right? And verification also happens in same manner. So if you are verifying whether hash of message m is equal to sigma raised to the power vk mod n or not. Then which of the following holds for the signature scheme? Even if the RSA assumption holds, the adversary can win the signature forgery experiment with a non-negligible probability. Second option says if the RSA assumption holds, then the adversary can win the signature forgery experiment with only a negligible probability. Third option says the adversary can win in the signature forgery experiment with probability 1, and the fourth statement says the adversary cannot win in the signature forgery experiment. Which is the correct answer and why?
Ma'am, the answer is second. If the RSA assumption holds, then the adversary can win the signature forgery experiment with a negligible probability.
Correct. So can you explain like little bit? So okay, let me ask you this, that if H was not a hash function modeled as random oracle, then what could be the problem? Was it possible to get a secure signature scheme in that case? Signature forgery experiment, could it be owned by the adversary in that case if H was not a random oracle?
Yes, it can be possible.
Adversary could win, right?
Yes. By putting a message along with the signature like something like m dash is equal to q. So then the output will become m dot m dash finally. So it basically has forged the signature.
Right. So the reason why adversary is not able to forge is because for a given m, the h of m is completely random over the space Zn star. So even if it tries to forge, right? So let's say so for any m, h of m is completely unpredictable. It could be anything, random element over the space Zn star. So that is why for generating a valid forgery, right, given some message sigma pair for the seen messages, for an unseen message without the access to the secret key, it is difficult to generate a valid signature actually. So two assumptions are there. One is RSA assumption hold and another is the hash function is modeled as random oracle. Then this signature forgery experiment will not be owned by the adversary except with negligible probability.
Ma'am, actually, I questions in this. First is, what is the difference between option 1 and option 2?
Oh, one is saying non-negligible, another is saying negligible, right? Yeah.
And other one, what I had this was that should the second option not be like if the RSA assumption holds and the hash function is collision resistant?
If you are saying
because it is finally the collision resistant property that is making the scheme unforgeable.
right, now point is that when we are in the question only, it is already mentioned that h is a hash function. Of course, that means it's a cryptographically secure hash function, and if it is a cryptographically secure hash function, then collision resistance property, of course, it holds true. And not only that, not only the collision resistant property, but also it being a random oracle, like if you are able to model it as random oracle, that already says you that like it is safe to use, right, the hash function to map it uniformly randomly over the Zn star space. So because it is already mentioned in the question, that's why they did not mention it in the statement again actually. But because of this only, the security holds true. It's already given in the question actually.
Ma'am, but in this, the reason that this adversary is able to bring the signature closure experiment negligible probability is because of the collision resistance, not because of RSA assumption, right?
RSA assumption also plays a role here, because otherwise if you are, so what does RSA assumption says? RSA assumption says that given some m to the power e mod n, you can't say anything about the underlying m, right? So of course that also holds true, right? Because otherwise you could have, like, both of the assumption needs to be there. If any one of them fails, then like you maybe what you could do, so you are doing this m to h of m and then h of m to the power e mod n. Now let's say this is random oracle model, that's okay. Now m1 sigma 1 is available. For generating some forgery for other m and sigma, first thing is that, see, if RSA assumption was not true, then actually you can retrieve, maybe if you are able to know m, that means you are also able to know the secret key. So I should write it as not e, it is right for signature scheme, it is m to the power sk, the signing key, the secret key one. If you are able to determine m from this, then you of course know the secret key sk. So then secret key is only broken, right? Then you can take any message on your own, hash it and raise it to the power sk, and you generate it, right? So hash function is public. So if you have m, you can generate h of m, but what you can't do, if you have h of m, then you cannot get back to corresponding m, right? So by the part that from h of m you cannot generate h of m to the power sk, that is because you don't know sk. And the part that you cannot go from h of m to m, that ensures that if you start in the backward direction, you take any random element from Zn star, you raise it to the power vk, the verification key, to get a backward element, right? Such that, so you take a just random element as sigma from Zn star, right? You raise sigma to the power vk such that you get some let's say h of m value. So what will be the case? So it means that h of m to the power sk is actually sigma, right? So for h of m, sigma is a valid signature, but to get the corresponding m, that is difficult because h is a random oracle. So the forward direction, if you want to valid using the forward direction going m to sigma, that is impossible to generate because sk is not known by RSA assumption. And to get a signature forgery in the backward direction, you need that this h is modeled as random oracle. Does that make sense?
Yes, ma'am.
Okay. So the second option is the correct option, right? Alice submits a bid to an auction so that other bidders cannot see her bid. She encrypts it under the public key of the auction service. Suppose that the auction service provides a public key for an RSA encryption scheme with a modulus n, where 2 and 5 are not the factors of n, and a public exponent e. Okay. Now assume that bits are encoded simply as integers between 0 and n-1 prior to encryption. Also assume that Alice submits a bid which is a round number, that is, in this case means that her bid is a number that is divisible by 10, and say her encrypted bid is x. For simplicity, assume we are using plain deterministic RSA. An adversary Chris, on seeing x, wants to submit an encryption of a bid that exceeds Alice's bid by 10% without even knowing what Alice's bid is. Then the ciphertext submitted by Chris is. So we already know that RSA crypto system, the naive deterministic RSA, is not CCA secure, right? It is malleable. Basically, RSA ciphertext, the plain deterministic RSA ciphertext is malleable. So using that malleable property of the RSA ciphertext, if the adversary Chris here wants to modify Alice's ciphertext, so X is Alice ciphertext, which is encrypted under RSA crypto system. So this is the public key and some message, let's say small x, such that small x is a multiple of 10. We write it as 10 divides x, right? So x is a multiple of 10 and capital X is the RSA encryption corresponding to small x. Now there is this adversary Chris who is trying to generate some x dash such that x dash becomes 10%. So x dash becomes encryption of some entity which is 10% larger than x, right? So x is the actual value that Alice bids. If you want 10% higher value than that, that means you want 110 by 100x, right? This is 10% higher than x, or we can write 11x by 10. So this is the value which is 10% higher than x, and you want x dash to be encryption of 11x by 10, right? So what is encryption of 11x by 10? So this is basically so what does RSA encryption do? It takes the plain text and raise it to the power encryption key mod n. Now if I write this x to the power mod n into 11 by 10 to the power e mod n, I can write this because using the modular arithmetic, right? AB mod n is equal to a mod n into b mod n with the help of that. So now x to the power e mod n is nothing but the encryption of small x, which is we already know the value to be capital X, into 11 by 10 to the power e mod n, right? So the correct value will be x into 11 by 10 to the power e mod n. Now notice that we can perform this operation, so you can also write it as 10 inverse to the power e actually, and 10 inverse is computable because it is already mentioned in the question that n is not a multiple of 2 and 5, or in other words n is co-prime to 10. That's why inverse of 10 exists, right? And because inverse of 10 exists, 10 to the power minus e can be computed. So it is a of course valid value and it can be computed from the value of x, and that will be the value of modified ciphertext, right? So none of the options are actually correct here, you can see. So is this clear?
Yes, ma'am.
Okay. Which of the following does not hold for Schnorr identification scheme? It is not based on the discrete log assumption. Is this true or false? We were already discussing this, right? Is this true?
The first one
No,
is
ma'am.
false.
It's false, right? Yes. We just discussed that it is based on discrete log assumption. The exchange between prover and verifier happens in zero knowledge fashion, which means that neither party knows about the computation power of each other. Is this statement true?
This is false.
This is false. So in zero knowledge there is nothing to say about computation power of the party, rather what the party, so there is this prover and verifier. What prover wants to prove is knowledge of some secret information, and verifier would know that the prover indeed knows the information without knowing the actual information. That is why it is called zero knowledge. So the third statement says the verifier can only know if the prover knows about the secret key without knowing anything more about the key. So the information at the end of zero knowledge protocol the verifier gets is that the prover actually owns the secret key, but it knows nothing about the secret key itself or no more information than that. So third statement is correct. Last statement says a dishonest prover can convince a verifier only with a negligible probability. This is true, right? Negligible probability will always be there, but otherwise a dishonest prover should not be able to convince a verifier, right, in zero knowledge protocol. And that is what the soundness property of zero knowledge says. Sorry, I was talking about Schnorr identification schemes. So anyway, in Schnorr identification scheme also, so if the prover does not really hold the secret key, then it should not be able to convince the verifier that it has the knowledge. That verification should fail. Okay. So third and fourth options are correct, right? Or incorrects are first and second statement. Okay, coming to this week's topics. So for Samir's secret sharing scheme, the correctness holds if the Lagrange interpolation is performed over a ring. The correctness holds if the Lagrange interpolation is performed over the integers. Third statement says the privacy does not hold if the secret is said to be any other coefficient of the sharing polynomial except the constant term. None of the above. So I wait for your answer for 2 minutes and then you can actually unmute yourself and say.
Ma'am, first one seems to be correct.
Okay. Okay. Let's see others' answers. Anyone else? What about the third statement? Okay. So basically the correctness holds if the Lagrange interpolation is performed over a field actually, not ring. Why? Because if you remember that uh, when you are recombining the secret shares, right, of t parties to reconstruct the actual secret, you are multiplying it with Lagrange coefficient, and Lagrange coefficient has some denominator, right, and in other words you have to get the inverse element of those element in the denominator, right? So in ring, not necessarily all the elements will have its inverse. When we are talking about the algebraic structure ring, there are two operations defined, addition and multiplication, and with respect to multiplication, not all the elements of ring has corresponding inverse, but in case of field, every element except the additive identity will have a multiplicative inverse in it, and that's why, because there is this inverse operation involved in computation of Lagrange coefficient, you need to have elements from a field. So ring is not sufficient to do that. So first and second options are not correct actually. And about the third statement, so usually what we do when we do the summit secret sharing, basically if you have some secret S, right, and you want to share it using summit secret sharing scheme, so you want some t out of n threshold scenario. So what we essentially do, we actually get a degree t polynomial, right, such that there are total t plus 1 coefficients available, and the last constant term is S, and now you evaluate that t degree polynomial at n different points. So those n different points will be known to everyone, say a1 to an, and you evaluate the function at those points, and whatever is the computed value, those are nothing but secret share given to the parties p1 to pn. Now any t out of them, if they combine, they basically know the, basically if t plus 1 parties combine, right, so if the degree t polynomial is used, then you have to know t plus 1 value, like xy pair for that particular function f, in order to uniquely determine the function. So if t plus 1 party are combining together, then you will be able to uniquely determine that t degree polynomial, and then you evaluate that function at x equal to 0 to get the secret S. Now if that secret S, instead of constant term, it is positioned at some x to the power I term, then you have to just know which is the exact position of that secret, at which coefficient it has been placed, and with that information you can always retrieve the particular coefficient value, right? Once you have uniquely determined the function, then you can always get the secret value. So it does not matter whether the secret is placed at some constant term or at some other coefficient, right? So this statement is wrong. Privacy will hold even if the secret is said to be any other coefficient of the sharing polynomial except constant term. So none of the statements are correct actually. Is this clear?
Yes, ma'am.
Okay. So coming to next question. Consider the following variant of additive secret sharing for sharing a n-bit secret among n shareholders p1 to pn, where up to n-1 shareholders could be corrupt. To share an n-bit secret S consisting of n number of bits, so each bit are denoted with S1 to Sn. So S1 to Sn are the bits of the secret S. Now the dealer gives party Pi the share Si. So basically what is happening here, you have some secret information S which can be converted to a binary representation of n bit, right? So you have n bit binary representation of this secret. Each bit is marked as S1, S2 and so on. till Sn, right? So they are nothing but bit, right? Each space, each position holds either a bit 0 or a bit 1. This is the value of secret. Now the secret sharing is simply you are giving this bit S1 to party P1, S2 to party P2, and so on, and you are trying to basically achieve some kind of additive secret sharing. Okay, now it says that let's say up to n-1 shareholders can be corrupt, right? So if let's assume without loss of generality that P1 to Pn-1 are corrupt, that means an adversary has knowledge of bit S1 to Sn-1. Now there are some options. First statement says that the scheme provides perfect secrecy. Next statement says that the scheme provides computational security. Third statement says the scheme is secure provided n is sufficiently large, and the last option is none of the above. So you can think about this for 1 minute and let me know the answer.
Now in this case, why they are saying variant of additive secret sharing?
They
It's the
just
same as that additive secret sharing that is there in the slide. In the website.
do you feel it is the same? What is usually what is additive secret sharing? How do you do it? You have,
Yeah.
let's say you have a n-bit secret S, right? How do you do the additive secret sharing? Just you can say there are n number of parties. How do you do it?
We first generate n-1 unicorn, not random, we pick up random value, random secret value s1 to sn-1, and then we pick up a random secret, the dealer picks up a random secret, and then the snth bit, snth secret is then generated by doing an XOR of the s1 to sn-1 and the secret s.
Okay. Notice that you are correct, but do you know what is the form of each of the SIs? Are they bit? Let's say S is a n-bit string, right? Here also S is a n-bit string, right? Now what is this each of the SI here? S1, S2 to Sn-1. Are they bits? No, they are not bits. They are not bits. In usual additive secret sharing, what you do, each of these S1, S2 to Sn-1, each of them, let's write it as SI, each of them are uniform random element from 01 to the power n only. Each of them are n-bit string. Okay. In normal additive secret sharing, each of the secret share has essentially the same form or same size as the original secret. Okay. Each of these SIs are n-bit binary string sampled uniformly randomly from this space. Okay. And then actually once you have independently generated these n-1 shares, then the last share is computed as XOR of all these values. Okay, so since they are binary values, you can apply the XOR operation. So S1 XOR with S2, so on to XOR with Sn-1 and XOR with the actual secret S. This is the actual secret, right? This is how Sn is computed, and Sn is also turned out to be a n-bit binary string only. So each of them, S is a n-bit binary string, S1, S2 to Sn-1, all of them are n-bit binary string. You XOR them all to finally produce the nth share. Here it is not the case, clearly. Here you are just taking the actual secret S. Here notice that S1 to Sn-1, none of them has any relation with the actual secret S. They are completely independent of the actual secret S, right? But here each of these bits S1 to S2, S1, S2 to Sn, all of them are bits of the secret only. So if n minus 1 parties are corrupted, already n minus 1 bits of the actual secret are leaked. Here this is not the case. Here even if s minus 1 number of parties are corrupted, since each of them are just independently chosen random string from 01 to the power n, they don't reveal any information about the actual secret, right? SIs are not generated using any information about actual secret S. So they are completely independent of the actual secret S. So they completely, we said the information theoretically hide the actual secret S. But here in this modified secret sharing scheme that they are trying to propose in this question, they are saying that each of the actual bits of the secrets are given to parties, right? P1 gets the actual bit of the secret S1. So P1 already knows that what is the first bit of the actual secret. P2 knows what is the second bit of the actual secret. And now if such n minus 1 parties are corrupted and collaborate together, then together they know already what are the n minus 1 bits of the actual secret. Only unknown left is the nth bit of the secret, right?
But they may not be knowing the sequence.
They may not be knowing the sequence. Then also like how many number of positions are there, right?
Yeah, brute force method may not be very difficult, but otherwise, yes.
Yes. So here they are saying that up to n minus shareholders could be corrupt. So the only bit left is some nth bit. Of course, the position, exact position may not be known, but that will be only there are like brute force could be possible, right?
If n is very large, then permutations will become very large, but maybe the third then can become correct. But
I think because you see P1 gets S1, okay, so the sequence actually does not matter, because with the party ID you know what is the position of the secret. That is how this question was crafted actually. If Pi gets Si, so P1 knows I know the first bit only, P2 knows I know the second bit.
So sequence is known, right?
Sequence is known. So any n minus 1 party out of them collaborate, they know which bits they know, right? So only unknown bit position is already known. You just have to fill that position with either 0 or 1. So you have to guess only twice and check whether that works or not. So you win the game with probability exactly half. So basically there is no security. With significant probability you can guess the secret. So of course it does not provide perfect security, it does not provide computational secrecy even if n is large, because Pi gets Si, so sequence is known. That is why even if n is large, it does not help, because you exactly know which position to guess and you can guess correctly with probability half. So none of the above is the correct option, right? Make sense? Okay, let me proceed to the next question. For the additive secret sharing scheme, the operations have to be necessarily performed over a ring. The operations have to be necessarily performed over a field. The privacy holds against a computationally unbounded adversary. And the privacy property is guaranteed only if the adversary is computationally bounded. Which are the correct options? Okay, so for additive secret sharing scheme, I was just explaining, right, that the only operation you rely on is some particular addition operation. Okay, so usually the algebraic structure group is defined over a set and a particular operation which satisfies the closure property. So we usually call it a like additive group. So your additive secret sharing scheme, that we also call, right, n-1 out of n, where you allow till n-1 corruption, right, then you just need to have an additive group. So it's not required to have a ring or field. Only addition operation should have the properties like identity element, closure, additive inverse, and so on, right? So ring and field needs another operation also, say multiplication. So in case of additive secret sharing, since we just need one single addition operation to be performed, so additive group is sufficient to perform additive secret sharing. So first two options are not correct because they say that necessarily it needs to be performed over ring or over field. Those are not correct. The third statement says that privacy holds against a computationally unbounded adversary. So as I was already mentioning, that since when you are generating these shares S1, S2 till Sn-1, right, each of them are independent of the actual secret S. And finally the last share is generated as, let's say, S minus all the si's are equal to 1 to n-1, such that S becomes summation of all the secret shares are equal to 1 to n, right? This we finally want to satisfy, so last share is computed in this manner. And because each of the si's S1 to Sn-1 are independent of S, there is no way you can know the information about Sn without knowledge of S. There is no way. Even if the adversary has unbounded computational power, it can go over all the possible values of Sn. So if S is a n-bit binary string, right? Let's say S is a element of Z to n, right? That is n-bit binary string. And also each of the S1 are also element of Z to n. Now what is the possible number of values of Sn? Sn is also n-bit binary string, so it can have 2 to the power n possible values. The adversary may iterate over all the 2 to the power n possible values for Sn, but still it will not know anything about Sn because it does not know S, and each of them are independent of S. So even though it knows this sum, even though say first n-1 parties are corrupted, so adversary knows each of the values S1, S2 to Sn-1, so it can compute this summation part, but it does not know S. So it will have absolutely no information about Sn. So it will win only with 1 by 2 to the power n probability, which is negligible. So even if the adversary has unbounded computational power, it will not win the game, or it will not be able to guess Sn successfully except negligible probability. So third statement is correct, and last statement is just opposite to the third statement, so it is not true. So is this okay?
Yes, ma'am.
Okay. Which of the following statements is or are false? So it says fiat semi-transform is used to transform a public key identification scheme to a digital signature scheme. So this is true?
Yes.
It is true, right? We already discussed that, how to apply fiat semi-transform to get a single round signature scheme or non-interactive signature scheme from a 3-round identification scheme. This is true. The signature scheme obtained from fiat semi-transform is secure in random oracle model. Is this true? If random oracle model is not there, then are we able to get a signature scheme from fiat semi-transformation? So in this statement the stress is on in random oracle model. Is this true? Anyone?
Yes,
It is true, right? Can you explain why?
ma'am. Without the random order model, we cannot transform. We cannot do fiat semi transformation.
Why? Like, if it is not random oracle, so if there is no random oracle model involved, so where is it involved? Basically, when we are in the prover side, okay, prover generates the commitment on its own and then it applies the hash function on the message and the commitment and generates a challenge R, right? Now, if H is not a random oracle, what is the problem? So, does it reflect the scenario where the prover is trying to cheat, or is it reflecting the scenario where verifier is trying to cheat? So, why we need this H to be a random oracle? What if H is just a hash function? Let's say cryptographically secure hash function, but it is not a random oracle. Then what is the problem? Okay, so problem is that when we are converting an identification scheme to a signature scheme, we have a secure identification scheme, okay, and we are applying the transformation here at semi and we are getting a signature scheme. Now, in identification scheme, after sending the commitment, so this is a 3-round protocol, there is a challenge coming from the verifier side and then you give the corresponding response to the verifier, prover and verifier. This challenge should be chosen uniformly randomly from the challenge space, right? So this challenge is picked by the verifier. Before, so the commitment I that the prover sends to the verifier, this must be sent before it sees the challenge of the verifier. Otherwise, it is able to cheat trivially, right? If the prover knows, so let's say prover is a cheater, okay, it is trying to get some, like it is trying to prove that it is someone else, okay, it does not have the proper identity. Then if it knows the challenge that is going to come from verifier side beforehand, then it can accordingly choose its commitment value and it is able to cheat actually the verifier. So the security of identity protocol relies on the fact that the verifier's challenge is completely uniform over the challenge space, and then if the prover is able to come up with a correct response corresponding to that random challenge chosen by the verifier, then only verifier is convinced that okay, the challenge I had given, the prover has correctly responded for that challenge, so the prover has truly the secret information with it. In the corresponding signature scheme, we are not allowing the verifier to give a challenge to the prover. So it is one round. When we are coming to signature scheme, the protocol is one round. So here commitment is also generated by the prover and the challenge is also generated by the prover. Now if the prover is not honest, then it can cheat, right? It can choose a convenient challenge for itself and accordingly generate S. But to ensure that the prover has no control over the challenge R, it is necessary that H is modeled as a random oracle. So because H is a random oracle, then the response of this random oracle cannot be controlled by the prover. It's going to be completely random over the challenge space. So that is how it is necessary for H to be random oracle, so that although R is generated on the prover side only, but if prover is running a correct, maintaining or following the protocol, then according to the protocol, R will be chosen as if it was chosen by a verifier only. R generation of R cannot be controlled by the prover. That is why H needs to be modeled as random oracle, and then prover generates the corresponding response for this honestly generated challenge. Okay. So for that it needs the hash function to be random oracle. So second statement is also correct. Third statement says that in a signature scheme obtained from fiat summit transform, the signature of a message M has the form R, S, which is a valid instance of challenge response with respect to the identification scheme. So this is of course correct, already mentioned. Fourth statement says identification scheme is non-interactive, whereas signature scheme is interactive. Is this true?
This is false.
This is false, right? So that is the crux of this whole thing, that identification scheme is interactive, but we make signature scheme from it using fiat semi transform, which will be non-interactive. So this statement is just opposite to what it is actually. Okay, so false statements are only the last one is false. Okay, select the correct statements. In SNOR identification scheme, the commitment has the form I equal to g to the power k for some random k belonging to zq chosen by the prover, such that the set capital G, the generator small g, and the size of gq is publicly available group description. So is this statement correct?
Yes, true.
Yes, it is correct, right? So, already discussed. Second statement says in non-signature scheme, the hash function H01 to power star to ZQ is used in order to simulate the role of a verifier in generating a random challenge. Is this true?
This is true.
Yes, it is true. So just now I was discussing that only, that it simulates the role of a verifier. Improper instantiation of hash function H in SNOR signature scheme may lead to security vulnerability of the scheme. Is this true or false?
This may be true. I'm not sure.
It is true because whenever we say that some hash function is modeled as random oracle, that is a theoretical statement. Now whenever we instantiate that hash function in real world, we use the hash function used should actually have the property of a random oracle. If we are not using a proper hash function, then the system built upon it will fail. So it needs a proper instantiation of the hash function H so that it behaves as a random oracle. So yes, improper instantiation of hash function H is not signature scheme may lead to security vulnerability, that is is true. So basically all of the above is the correct answer. Select the incorrect statements. TLS handshaking protocol is used by the two parties to decide upon a set of keys to be used by them for encryption and authentication later. Okay.
This is true.
Yes, this is true. TLS handshaking protocol uses symmetric key cryptography. True or false?
False.
This is false, right? Handshaking protocol uses asymmetric key cryptography, and after that basically the set of keys are established among the two parties, between the two parties, and then TLS record layer protocol actually uses symmetric key cryptography. So through asymmetric cryptography the keys are established first, and then on the two parties continue to communicate with each other using symmetric key, which were decided through the handshaking protocol. So just to recap, so in TLS, so the two parties are communicating, say A and B, and first there is this handshaking protocol going on. This is nothing but kind of key exchange protocol going on. So there is this, you already studied, right, key encapsulation mechanism, okay, and the key is then decapsulated here, and using the decapsulated key, right, and chosen key here, both of them run some key derivation function, and in real world when we are talking, so there is some nonce also involved to ensure randomization. So there are some nonce involved from both the parties, and using that nonce finally using the k derivation function you establish some master key on the both side, and then you apply ERG on that master key to actually generate a set of 4 keys both side. So first set of keys will be like key encryption for communication from A to B and key MAC, and another set of key is from communication to B for that encryption key and MAC key, right? So there are set of 4 keys generated both side. So once this handshaking protocol is over and the whole conversation is actually authenticated on both sides, so you actually also use some tag generation on the transcript going on in the handshaking phase. Once both side is convinced about each other's authenticity, right, then only starts the symmetric key phase, which we call the record layer phase, and there actually symmetric key cryptography comes to place, which is quite lightweight. So rest of the communication will continue in symmetric key setting, which is lightweight, but the initial phase, that is handshaking phase, that needs the asymmetric key cryptography, so that a symmetric key is agreed upon on both sides using some key exchange protocol. That is the brief summary. So here actually incorrect statement is the second and third one, right? Okay. Which of the following is or are false about the handshaking protocol of TLS? The handshake protocol outputs 2 pairs of encryption and authentication key, one for communication from client to server, another for communication from server to client. Is this true? It is true, right? Just now I discussed. So because in the symmetric key phase, the record layer phase, when I am saying that symmetric key setting is going on, then actually you use some authenticated encryption scheme. So from previous weeks, if you remember, when we talk about authenticated encryption, it is in symmetric key world, and it is the combination of both a secure encryption and secure authentication or integration protocol. So there is CCA security and ciphertext integrity ensured for an authenticated encryption protocol, and it necessarily involves two keys. So if you remember, in a very typical approach to achieve authenticated encryption is to go with encrypt then authenticate approach. So you use your encryption key to encrypt your message M and get a ciphertext C, and then you generate a tag by running tag generation on the ciphertext C, that is the authenticate part, and let's say T is the tag generated, and then you communicate both the ciphertext C and the tag T as the final ciphertext to the receiver, and the receiver first validates whether the tag T is a valid tag corresponding to the ciphertext C. Only if that validation succeeds, then it proceeds to decrypt the ciphertext C with the corresponding encryption key. So basically, because it is in symmetric key setting, both encryption key and decryption key will be same, and tag generation key and tag verification key will also be the same, that is the MAC key. So essentially there are two keys involved, and both of these keys should be independent of each other. Okay, so of course in the handshaking protocol the two parties agree upon two sets of encryption and MAC key. One is for communication from client end to server end, and another is for communication from server end to client end. Second statement says a key derivation function is used to generate master key from pre-master key. So is this true?
Yes, ma'am.
It is true. So if you remember from the lecture slides, they basically first, the pre-master key is the key chosen in the key encapsulation phase, right, in the key exchange phase. Usually the one of the parties chooses the pre-master key and encapsulates it and sends the encapsulation to the other party decapsulates it, gets the corresponding pre-master key, and apply the key derivation function on that pre-master key and some other values like nonce and others, and derives the master key, and from the master key the PRG is applied and the set of four keys is generated. That is what the third statement says, that a pseudorandom generator is applied to master key to generate all four shared keys, shared between the two parties in communication, the sender and receiver, or client or server, whatever you say. So all the three statements are correct. Question was which of the following is or are false. So actually none of them are false. This is question about modular arithmetic. So which of the following is or are false? You can quickly answer that, right, from the slide. So yes, anyone would like to answer?
First is correct.
First is correct,
Addition is supported in model.
right,
Second is also correct.
right,
Third is also correct.
okay,
Fourth is not correct.
right. When can fourth be correct, at what condition? Not always you are correct, fourth statement is false, but when it can be correct?
It can be correct if we have inverse of C and D.
Right. So if we have inverse of C and D, then only like we can say on the both side. So I think the first three statements are correct, and I don't think that those need to be explained. They are quite obvious. About the fourth statement, because this is provided that A congruent to B modulo n. Now if C inverse and D inverse exist in modulo n, then we can write that A into C inverse. So this becomes the same as third statement, where multiplication holds in modular arithmetic both side. So you can multiply number from Zn in both side of the congruence relation. So you can write this mod n, right? Only if inverse of C and D exist, and inverse of C and D will exist if GCD of C and n is 1 and also GCD of D and n is 1, right? Then only we say that inverse of those elements exist, and because C is congruent to D modulo n, then C inverse and D inverse are also same number in modulo n, and this holds, okay? So this will not always hold, but so that's why this is a false statement, but it will hold if C and D have inverse in modulo n. Which of the following is or are false? Again, so okay, sorry, I think there is some mistake. Okay, so although the answer is here, you can follow this question slide. There are some mistake in the last slide. Okay, the answer is here. So clearly, again according to the same logic, the fourth statement is not correct, because in order to hold this, we need that K has inverse in modulo n, okay? Also, in this case like this, okay, where K is a common factor of both sides of the congruence, then we can only divide both sides with K, and we have to then reduce the modulo also. We write it modulo n divided by some D, where D is GCD of K and n. So you can remember this statement for dividing both sides of a congruence, and this is not a correct statement, but you can take note of this statement, that for dividing both sides of a congruence with a common factor, this actually holds true, okay? This is wrong according to the same logic as last slide. And first three statements of course holds, quite trivial.
What is the D?
D is
Mod
the-
n by D.
Yeah, D is GCD of K and n. This K, D is this value.
This statement is correct. Well, this is possible. You can
Yes,
reduce the n also.
you have to, like the modulo, actually you need to reduce the modulo. Of course, if it is like the congruence holds in modulo n by D, then it is also true in modulo n also, but you have to be like when you are multiplying, right? A, like if I write that A is this modulo 10, that necessarily means that say 7A modulo 7B is also mod 10, because I am multiplying both sides. But then let's say what I mean to say is that now if you are, so yes, if they are congruent modulo, like they are equal in congruent modulo n by D, then they will be equal in a multiple of n by D also, but the least modulo you consider is n by D actually. There can be multiple solution, right? You can always increase or get different values of A, but unique solution or unique value you will get only in modulo n by d. What I mean to say is that for Z10, right, the numbers are 0 to 9. When you get to Z20, then 9 is also equivalent to 18, right? Sorry, I mean that 9. All these values 0 to 9, right? They are unique element. 0 also maps. 1 also maps to 11, and 11 is congruent to 1 modulo 10, right? But when you are considering a bigger space, then 11 and 1 are not congruent to modulo 20, right? This is not true. So you will get unique values in modulo n by d in the smaller space. That is what I meant to say. So you have to reduce this modulo. Okay. Select the correct statements. Square and multiply algorithm is a polytime algorithm to compute modular exponentiation. This is true or false? Yes? Hello?
True, ma'am.
True, right? Yes, so basically in square and multiply algorithm, basically when you are trying to raise some integer a to another integer b in modulo n, then you actually see the binary representation of the exponent b, and then depending on the bit value of a position, so if b is a n bit integer, or in other words, if binary representation of b requires n bits, then depending on the particular position, if the bit value is 0 or if the bit value is 1, depending on that, if you either just do the square operation, or if the bit is 1, then only you do the multiplication operation. Otherwise, if the bit is 0, you don't do the multiplication operation. But since you have the bit length n for the exponent b, you need to do at most 2n number of operation, which is poly in number of bits of the exponent. So you get a polytime algorithm to compute modular exponentiation. This is true. Second statement says that AKS algorithm is a deterministic polytime algorithm to test primality of an arbitrary large number. So is it true, right? So AKS algorithm is the one who for the first time proposed a polytime primality testing algorithm which is deterministic. So there is no error probability in the algorithm. There are other primality testing algorithms which are more efficient, but they have some negligible error probability. That means even if that number is a composite number, the algorithm may tell you it to be a prime number with negligible probability. So those are randomized algorithm for primality testing, which could be more efficient, but still a deterministic algorithm was not there previously, that the AKS algorithm proposed for the first time. Third statement says extended GCD algorithm can be useful to compute multiplicative inverse modulo n. Is this true?
Yes, true, ma'am.
It is true, right? So what you can necessarily do is that let's say if you are trying to compute say A inverse modulo n, right? Of course you have to have this condition satisfied, that GCD of A and n is 1, or in other words A and n are co-prime, then only A inverse exists in modulo n. Now if GCD of A and N is 1, that means according to Bejout's identity, right, due to that relation we can actually express the GCD of A and N as AX plus NY in this form, right? So this will be 1. You can represent for some integer value x and value y, and the value of this coefficient x and y can be found by extended GCD algorithm. And once you have found that, then you can just apply modulo n on both sides. That gives you ax mod n plus ny mod n equal to 1 mod n. Now because ny mod n is 0, because ny is a multiple of n, so ny modulo n is 0. That implies that ax mod n is equal to 1 mod n, and that is nothing but, this implies that a is the x is the multiplication inverse of a, because ax is congruent to 1 modulo n, right? So this is how, by applying extended GCD algorithm, you can compute the coefficient value a and coefficient value x and y, and you declare x to be the multiplicative inverse of a. So all of the above statements are correct. Assume B wants to verify A's identity depending on the fact that only A has legitimate access to some confidential information. B wants to verify if A indeed has it. Which statements is or are wrong? In zero knowledge proof paradigm, authentic A is able to prove to B that it indeed has the access without disclosing anything about the confidential information to B. This is
true.
This is true, right? And second statement says zero knowledge proof technique ensures that B cannot present itself as A to some other verifier C using the proof information received from A. Is this true? So the protocol is going on between A and B, where A is trying to prove its identity to B. Now during the protocol, the information that B receives, can it successfully use that information to prove to some other party that I am A? Can B have that?
It's false. False.
So it cannot present itself as A, right, to some other. So the statement is true because it says that B cannot present itself as A to some other verifier C, because B will never have sufficient information to prove that by the security of zero knowledge protocol. So zero knowledge protocol says that only, that B will only know that A is having the correct identity, but apart from that, any secret that A has access to will not be revealed to B. So in order for the B to be successful in imposing as A to some other verifier C, it needs to have the information about the secret. But since it will not have the secret by the protocol going on between A and B, by the security of zero knowledge protocol, it will never be able to present itself as A, right?
So true actually.
So the statement is true. Yes, that statement is true. So first and second statement are true. A zero knowledge proof system for specific problem consists of 3 algorithms. Okay, this is like there is only proof to like proofer and verifier. The 2 algorithms are going on, so it's not 3. So first 2 statements are correct. Third statement is wrong. This is also again a straightforward question. Which of the following is or are desirable features of zero knowledge proof system?
All of them.
All of them, right? So completeness is the correctness property actually, that if the prover is honest and if verifier is following the protocol, so both prover and verifier are honest, then the correct proof can always be verified to be a true statement. So verification algorithm always returns 1 on a correctly generated proof. So that is completeness. And soundness says that if prover is not a authentic prover, so if it is a cheater, then it should not be able to generate a correct proof for verifier fee such that verification succeeds. That is soundness. And zero knowledge says if the verifier is dishonest, it should not have enough information so that it imposes as a correct authority to another verifier. So it should not have any information about the secret that the prover holds. So that is zero knowledge. So all three of them are required property for zero knowledge proof system. Okay, this is again already discussed. So quickly, what is the mapping? Anyone? It's the same question essentially, right? Yes.
One C.
1C,
Two B.
2, no, 2 is actually B. Oh, okay, you said B, okay, sorry. 2 is B and 3 is A. Right. Okay, correct. Okay. I think this is the last question. Select the correct statements. In a zero knowledge proof for graph isomorphism, a prover can cheat the verifier with probability half in a single round of interaction. In a zero knowledge proof for graph isomorphism, a prover can cheat the verifier with probability 1/2 to the power k after k rounds of interaction. Multi-party secure computation uses zero knowledge proof system. All of the above. Yes, that's the correct answer. So just to quickly recall what's the graph isomorphism zero knowledge proof works. So in the graph isomorphism problem, the so description of two graphs are publicly known. What is not known is whether these two graphs are isomorphic or not. Now if the prover has the information of the mapping, the isomorphism mapping or the bijection between G1 and G2, mapping the vertex of G1 to vertex of G2, if that information is available to the prover, then it will prove to verifier that these two graphs are indeed isomorphic to each other. Now to prove that, basically it actually generates some random isomorphic graph H which is isomorphic to G2, right? So it chooses a random bijection such that G2 maps to H. So let's say this is sigma, and the existing mapping that it already knows from G1 to G2 that proves that they are isomorphic, that mapping is pi, let's say. Now it generates this random mapping sigma that maps G2 to isomorphic graph H, and it commutes to verifier the graph H. Now verifier will ask the mapping corresponding to either G1 to H or G2 to H. It will ask from the prover. Prover will not know beforehand that which query is going to be asked by the verifier. So if the question is provide me the mapping from G1 to H, then it does it applies the composition function. So pi is the mapping from G1 to G2, and with that you compose the mapping sigma. So in together you get a mapping from G1 to H. So pi takes it to G2 and sigma takes it to H. So the composition functions pi dot sigma, this is returned. Or if the query is from G to H, simply sigma will be returned. Now what you essentially as a prover you want to keep from verifier as secret is the information pi. So in none of the case the value pi will not be known to verifier, because sigma is a random mapping, and if the mapping for G2 to H is asked, then sigma is revealed. So that is not a problem for the prover, because it is independent of pi. And if mapping from G1 to H is asked, then also sigma works as a masking to pi. So pi is hidden by the random mapping sigma, and the final result sigma composite pi is revealed to be that does not reveal anything about exact mapping pi. So the isomorphism between G1 to G2 is still not known to the verifier, but verifier is convinced with probability half that prover indeed has the access to correct mapping pi. Because if it does not have the correct mapping, and he just queries for the mapping G2 to H, then it will still be able to return sigma, because the sigma is a random mapping independent of pi, and sigma is known to prover. So if sigma is returned by the prover correctly, that does not necessarily prove that P has access to pi. But if this query is repeated some sufficient number of times, say k times, and each time prover has responded correctly, then also if prover wins all these k instances of challenge response game, then with probability 1 by 2 power k the prover can cheat, and if k is sufficiently large, then 1 by 2 power k is negligible. So that's how with probability 1 by 2 to the power k the prover can cheat in k rounds of interaction. And yes, multi-party secure computation uses zero knowledge proof system. If you have a passively secure MPC protocol, you can turn it to a actively secure MPC protocol. So active security means each of the party, so the corrupted party may deviate from the protocol, but still if you are applying the zero knowledge proof system there, you can make your system robust even against those active adversaries. So that's why MPC computation uses zero knowledge proof system. That is true. So all of the above statements are correct. So that is all for today from my side. If you have any question, you can ask, or I can end the session actually. Okay, so maybe I can just end the session. Thank you everyone for joining, and I think there will be the next session on Thursday at the same time. Okay.
Okay, thank you.
Okay. Thank you.